Hello and welcome to Beyond the Continent on News Central Television. I am Adebola Adeduba. We begin with stories in the Middle East where the Israeli cabinet will vote on a ceasefire deal in Lebanon on Tuesday. And this was made known by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's spokesperson after a source familiar with the matter said the Prime Minister had approved the plan in principle. Netanyahu signaled his potential approval for the emerging ceasefire with Hezbollah during a security consultation with Israeli officials last night. Israel still has reservations over some details of the agreement, which were expected to be transmitted to the Lebanese government on Monday. Meanwhile, senior UN official has called on all parties involved in the conflict in Lebanon to accept a ceasefire as new Israeli strikes targeted Beirut's southern suburb, the Hezbollah stronghold. UN Security Council resolution of 1701 ended the 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah and stipulates that only UN peacekeeping forces and the Lebanese army can be deployed in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah has maintained a presence in the region. However, Israel has been conducting ground operations against the Iran-backed militant and political group since September 30th.
I welcome the ongoing diplomatic efforts to reach a cessation of the hostilities and urge the parties to accept a ceasefire anchored in the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701.
For more on this, I am joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, tell us what's the latest regarding the ceasefire proposal between Israel and Lebanon?
Well, at the moment, you've got mostly news websites from the Middle East reporting, and Axios in the US reporting, that this ceasefire deal is on the table. Now, it's suggested that Israel has agreed to large proportions of this ceasefire deal, but not all of it. And those are the last sort of final points that are being worked on at the moment. Now, this agreement could see the end of this conflict between Lebanon, well, mainly actually Hezbollah and Israel, that's been going for about 14 months. It's seen 3,500 Lebanese people killed and 15,000 injured. And this deal would also allow thousands of people who live on both sides of the border in southern Lebanon to be able to return to their homes. Now, this agreement that's being worked on at the moment will have a 60-day transition period that would see the IDF withdraw from southern Lebanon, where most of the fighting has been taking place. Yes, there have been skirmishes and bomb attacks in Beirut as well, but it actually has mostly been focused on southern Lebanon.
The question on everyone's lip is, how soon can we expect the ceasefire to be enforced?
Well, we're really hearing news about being talked about just today, and it's thought that the Israeli parliament will vote on it tomorrow. So that could mean that perhaps later on in the week we see the first part of this ceasefire being enforced, and that could potentially be very, very possible if things go to plan. Now, it's thought that this deal actually was being finalized towards the end of last week, but because we had the International Criminal Court, the ICC, issue those arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, who was his former minister who was in charge of the war there as well as Mohammed Deif, who we believe is a Hamas commander who has been killed, but the ICC said they don't have enough evidence for that because that was issued at the end of that last week. The final points of this deal were put to the back burner while they responded to that. But now they are focused more on that, and it could be towards the end of this week, like I said, that we could see that deal being enforced.
As we look forward to the ceasefire being enforced, what challenges are we to see trying to get the ceasefire in place?
Well, the bumps in the road really will be, first of all, how this ceasefire is enforced and who will be in charge of making sure that both sides stick to the deal. That's going to be the real crux of it, isn't it? Is how both sides will stick to the deal, and if both sides will stick to the deal. Now, Israel will more than likely say that they want to be able to return to a state of fighting if Hezbollah on one side does anything to sort of go back on the ceasefire, if it regroups, if it starts to take action in southern Lebanon again, they will want to have a reporting mechanism where they can flag that and perhaps go back to military operations. Whatever happens, this will be presented as a win for both sides. You know, Israel will say that they managed to take out quite a lot of Hezbollah's senior leadership, which they did. They killed many of the group's higher ups. They pushed Hezbollah forces back from the border. And Hezbollah, again, will say on their side that they continued their fight against Israel and continued to support Hamas in Gaza. And now that we potentially have this ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, meaning that there will be more peaceful times in southern Lebanon, people will be looking to Gaza and looking to that place and saying, well, when will a ceasefire be enforced there? And of course, when will the hostages be released? Nothing is being said about that at the moment, but there's lots of hope that perhaps if this ceasefire goes the way it should, if it is enforced, it could pave the way for Israel and Gaza and Palestine to perhaps enforce a ceasefire as well and release the remaining hostages that were taken on October 7th.
Afia, many thanks for your time. In the meantime, Iran's supreme leader has called for a death sentence to be issued for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Iran's arch nemesis Israel, saying the ICC arrest warrant for him is not enough. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was commenting on the decision by the International Criminal Court to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for his former defense chief and the Hamas leader Ibrahim al-Masri. The decision was met with outrage in Israel, which called it shameful and absurd. Israel has rejected the jurisdiction of the Hague-based court and denies war crimes in Gaza.
جنایت جنگی است. حکم بازداشتش رو صادر کردن کافی نیست. حکم اعدام نتانیاهو، حکم اعدام این سران جنایتکار بایستی صادر بشه. این نکته اول.
Away from that, major travel disruptions has hit the UK after Storm Bert swept through the country, killing at least 5 people. Now, more than 100 flood warning signs falls, including a danger to life warning, and trains and flights are cancelled across the country. Residents in South Wales, one of the worst hit places, are angry at what they say is a lack of preparation from officials. News Centre's international correspondent Afia Hagen has more on this.
Weather forecasters and politicians have come in for strong criticism after hundreds of homes and businesses across the UK suffered devastating flooding in Storm Bert. But the UK Meteorological Office has said it issued sufficient warning. There are growing complaints in South Wales, one of the areas most heavily hit, that the Met Office issued only a yellow warning rather than an amber or red, and that not enough new defences had been put in place by the Welsh Government since storms last wreaked havoc in the area 4 years ago. At least 5 people have died as Storm Bert swept across the UK, causing power outages and widespread train and flight cancellations. Dramatic footage that emerged over the weekend showed rivers in Wales, one of the hardest hit areas, bursting their banks to submerge low-lying streets and vehicles parked outside. Rescuers waded through hip-deep water to rescue pets with an inflatable raft, whilst residents teamed up to manually remove water with buckets. Fatalities during the storm have been reported in multiple locations across Britain. A man in his 60s died after a tree fell on a car in the South English city of Winchester on Saturday, whilst another man in his 40s was killed in a crash in Northamptonshire, a central county, and that's according to local police. Further north, a 34-year-old man died in a single vehicle collision in the early hours of Saturday, according to West Yorkshire Police. 300 flights in and out of London's Heathrow Airport were cancelled over the weekend, with nearly 1,200 flights delayed. The storm is expected to clear from the far northeast early on Tuesday, though risks of further downpours and strong winds remain across the south of the UK until Wednesday, forecasters have warned. The cold front associated with Storm Bert will impact parts of Western Europe, where orange warnings for high winds are in place for parts of Germany and France. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
Staying in the UK, where police have arrested a 22-year-old man after a shooting incident in West London left a young girl and a man with serious injuries. The police superintendent, Owen Redund, explained this during a press briefing close to the scene. The superintendent added that the 34-year-old male has sustained potentially life-changing injuries, while the 8-year-old girl remains in surgery.
On arrival, officers located a 34-year-old man and an 8-year-old girl who had sustained serious gunshot injuries. Also present in the car were a 2-year-old child and a 32-year-old woman who were thankfully unharmed. The 34-year-old male has sustained potentially life-changing injuries, whilst the 8-year-old girl remains in surgery, although we do not believe her injuries to be life-threatening at this time. Immediately following the incident, officers arrested a 22-year-old male on suspicion of attempted murder, and he remains in police custody.
Elsewhere in the region, French prosecutors have asked for the maximum 20-year prison sentence for Dominique Pellicot, who organized a repeated mass rape of his then-wife by knocking her unconscious with drugs and inviting dozens of strangers to abuse her in the family home. The 71-year-old Pellicot has admitted the charges in the trial that attracted worldwide attention and turned into examination of the pervasiveness of sexual violence in France and beyond. 50 other men also stand trial for participating in the sex act. The prosecutors, who will over the next 2 days say what sentences they seek against the co-accused, rejected the arguments made by many of the men that they did not realize they were raping Gisèle Pellicot or had not intended to do it.
Abattu, vous savez, quand il est réclamé 20 ans contre un individu, l'individu fait de suite des calculs mathématiques, on va dire. On est détenu depuis le 4 novembre 2020. 20 ans sont encourus. Il aura dans quelques jours 72 ans. C'est compliqué pour un homme de se dire à 72 ans qu'on va réclamer 20 ans, même si c'est justifié. Je le reconnais, au regard de la gravité des faits, de la lourdeur des faits qui lui sont reprochés. Comme ça, effectivement, je pouvais m'attendre aussi à des réquisitions avec une peine de sûreté. Ça n'a pas été demandé par l'avocat général. Peut-être qu'il y a une faille dans laquelle je vais pouvoir aller pour me dire que peut-être rien n'est perdu et qu'il y a encore un petit peu d'espoir. À l'occasion d'un interrogatoire, je demandais à M. Pellicot quel était le seul mot qu'il pouvait prononcer, employer au regard de tout ce qui lui était reproché. Il m'a répondu l'espoir. Je crois qu'on y est effectivement là aussi.
After the break, riot police face demonstrators challenging stolen election in Georgia. Details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying tuned, and let's talk politics in Europe, where Germany's Olaf Scholz has been officially named to lead his Social Democrats into February election, but the embattled Chancellor faces a tough fight to win a second term. The way had been cleared for Scholz to become the SPD's Chancellor candidate after his popular defense minister, Boris Pistorius, ruled himself out of the race last week. The SPD's Federal Executive Board unanimously backed 66-year-old Scholz on Monday, a decision expected to be confirmed at a party congress on January 11th. The elections had to be held 7 months earlier than scheduled after the collapse of Scholz's coalition with the Greens and Free Democrats in early November.
Wir haben heute im Präsidium und Parteivorstand unseren Bundeskanzler Olaf Scholz einstimmig zum Kanzlerkandidaten für die kommende Bundestagswahl nominiert.
Votum. Wir haben mit Olaf Scholz einen Bundeskanzler, der uns durch schwere Krisen in diesem Land durchgeführt hat, der Nervenstärke bewiesen hat, der Besonnenheit bewiesen hat und der Standhaftigkeit auch gerade bei den großen internationalen Themen bewiesen ist. Und auf der anderen Seite steht ein Friedrich Merz, Der war noch kein Bürgermeister, der war kein Landrat, der war nie Teil einer Landesregierung, Teil einer Bundesregierung. Der hat noch nie in einem Regierungsamt Verantwortung für dieses Land und die Menschen dieses Landes übernommen.
In der SPD nicht. Wir haben gemeinsam entschieden, dass wir vorangehen wollen, dass ich als Kanzler die SPD auch in den Bundestagswahlkampf führe, dass wir ein erneutes Mandat für die SPD und eine Kanzlerschaft des sozialdemokratischen Kanzlers Olaf Scholz erreichen wollen. Und das tun wir als Team gemeinsam. Und natürlich ist es wichtig und gut, dass wir einen sehr guten und sehr starken Verteidigungsminister haben.
Amid a heavy police presence, demonstrators gathered outside Parliament in Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, setting up camps, blocking traffic along Tbilisi's main road, throwing stones at security cameras, and banging the large steel reinforcement erected outside the building. The protest comes at the reconvening of the new parliament after an election in late October, won by the governing Georgian Dream Party, but contested by pro-Western opposition parties, which they call illegitimate. Georgia's new parliament met for the first time on Monday, with the chamber facing serious questions over the illegitimacy amid a boycott by opposition parties and the president declaring it unconstitutional. A political turmoil has rocked the Black Sea nation since October 26 election, won by the governing Georgian Dream Party, but contested by pro-Western opposition parties.
იმიტომ რომ არ აურჩევია ხალხს ეს პარლამენტი არ დაუნიშნავს პრეზიდენტს ეს ხდომა და ასე შემდეგ ძალიან ბევრი მიზეზია რომლის ჩამოთვლაც ახლა შორს წაგვიყვანს და ვიცით ყველამ რაც ხდება.
იმიტომ ვარ ქუჩაში რომ მინდა დავიცვა ჩემი ხმა და ასე ვთქვათ დავიცვა კიდე ქართველი ხალხის გადაწყვეტილება რომ უნდა იყოს ევროკავშირში და ყველაზე მთავარი აქ ევროკავშირი არის ყველაზე მთავარი რომ ჩვენ ვიყოთ დამოუკიდებელი ქვეყანა და შეგვეძლოს ჩვენი გადაწყვეტილება მივიღოთ ჩვენ თვითონ და არ იყოს ვიღაცისგან ნაკარნახევი რა და ქართულ ხალხს უნდა ქონდეს იმის უფლება რომ თავიანთი გადაწყვეტილება მიიღონ თვითონ.
მე ვფიქრობ რომ ძიმე სიტუაციაა ჩვენთვის რა ვინც ევროპა გვინდა და ვისაც დემოკრატია უნდა.
Similarly, in South America, thousands of Colombians took to the streets on Saturday to oppose the policies of President Gustavo Petro, who accused demonstrators of trying to destabilize the government. Protesters in cities including Bogota, Medellin, and Cali decried a series of proposed health, labor, and pensions reforms and accused Petro's administration of corruption. Now, the crowd, which included retired military officials and opposition lawmakers, waved Colombian flags, with some demonstrators holding signs that read, "No to Petro reforms" and "No to labor reforms." Petro, a former leftist guerrilla who has denied accusations, said that only some 20,000 people participated in Saturday's demonstration as he accused them of trying to overthrow the government and mock voters.
Porque es que me está doliendo mucho Colombia, todo lo que está pasando en este momento. O sea, nunca en mis 56 años que tengo, yo había visto algo así, que se hubiera deteriorado tanto el país. Entonces,
marcho porque estoy inconforme con todas las reformas que está haciendo Gustavo Petro y sus ministros y todo eso. La fuerza pública está totalmente siendo debilitada, la salud la está acabando, me he podido dar cuenta por mis propias necesidades.
El rumbo, que cambie el rumbo porque el país va para abajo. Ecopetrol, miren cómo está la construcción, todo está mal, el comercio, todo está mal. Necesita que cambie el rumbo que es.
Still in South America, the outgoing president of Uruguay, Luis Lacalle Pou, says November 24 is the beginning of a kind of decision sharing in the country, saying transition begins tonight after casting his vote for the presidential runoff. He says that Uruguayans are voting for two different projects between the ruling center-right Alvaro Delgado and the left-wing opposition Yamando Orsi. Left-wing politician Yamando Orsi was elected president of Uruguay. Official results showed on Sunday in a rebuke by voters of 5 years of conservative rule. Orsi promised in a victory speech on Sunday evening to be a president who calls again and again for national dialogue to find the best solutions. Delgado, meanwhile, considered defeat, saying he was sending a big hug And a greeting to Yamando Ossi.
Y bueno, es un momento especial para el país, para empezar. A partir de hoy de noche, el Uruguay tiene un presidente electo y empieza a haber una transición, con lo cual, naturalmente, empieza a haber una especie de compartir las decisiones, no las diarias, del próximo gobierno. Obviamente, hoy estamos votando dos proyectos distintos. Ustedes sabrán más o menos, y yo no voy a entrar en temas políticos porque no me corresponde.
In Asia, supporters of jailed ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan unmatched towards Islamabad, protesting and chanting slogans as police fired tear gas at them. Pakistan's capital has been under total lockdown since Sunday, November 24, with mobile internet cut, schools shut, and around 20,000 police deployed. The protest march, which Khan described as the final call, is one of many his party has held to seek his release since he was jailed in August last year. Now, some of the protesters say the people have shown their unwavering love for Imran Khan and the desire to see him return as Prime Minister.
खान का सिपाहियों किसी के साथ किसी दूसरा अमल में ऐसे जुल्म नहीं हुआ किस तरह हमारा खान के साथ हुआ हमारे साथ हो रहा है हम इस वजह से नाराज हैं इस हुकूमत से ये हुकूमत चला रहा नहीं सही चलता नहीं है हुकूमत हम बर्बाद हो गया हम जालिल हो गया हमारे साथ ये जुल्म करता है बस हम लोग खान के लिए निकला हुआ है मरने के लिए भी तैयार है जान माल सब कुछ खत्म इमरान खान के लिए हम जाएंगे खास डी चौक.
Still in the region, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos has vowed to fight back over what his office called an active threat against his life by estranged Vice President Sara Duterte. The Vice President held expletive laced press conference in which she alleged she was the subject of assassination plot and said she ordered a member of a security team to kill the president and his wife should they succeed. She was responding to the question during an online press conference about whether she feared for her safety. In a strongly worded video message addressing the nation, Marcos did not name Vice President Sara Duterte, his presidential running mate, but said such criminal plans should not be overlooked.
Bahala ang mga pahayag na narinig natin nitong mga nakarang araw. Nandyan ang walang pakundangang pagmumura at ang pagbabanta ng planong ipapatay ang ilan sa atin. Kung ganun na lang kadali ang pagplano sa pagpatay ng isang presidente, paano pa kaya ang mga pangkaraniwan na mamamayan? Yang ganyang kriminal na pagtatangka ay hindi dapat pinapalampas.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba. It's bye for now.